Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Sorry about the technical difficulties. It seems to me that the Justin TV / Mark Screen, or excuse me, Mark Sheen link has a little bit better quality. If you want to toggle back and forth and see which one works better for you, by all means, go for it. I'd like for you to be able to read the words on the worksheets that I'm putting up, and if that is not the case, go ahead and try Justin.tv / Mark Sheen, and you might be able to get a slightly clearer image out of that. There's also the chat functionality on that. Other than that, there were no questions during the chat, so we will move on. As a quick review to what we've talked about so far, first of all, we have talked about what the USAC is. USAC and E-rate are synonymous with one another, and it is a method to give discounts to a number of organizations, some of which are schools and libraries, on internet, telecom, and other information technology needs. Second, we talked about technology planning, how it's a good practice whether you plan on getting priority 2 services or not. A lot of people steer clear of technology planning because it is perceived to be very difficult, but with the template that is provided, you will see it's actually not that big of a deal. One of the other reasons, maybe the biggest reason why a lot of people stay away from E-rate is because they think that the application process itself is very difficult. So that's what we're going to do next, is we're going to take everybody that's on the stream through an application process, and I'm going to show you just how easy it is to submit an application for USAC. Okay, so before we start, let's go ahead and if you have a link to it in your email, open up the portion of your email that, sorry, I've got onlookers. Open up the portion of your email that is entitled Form 470 Worksheet. And I will find that myself, and I'll give you just 1 second to open it up as well. Here we go. There we go. All right, so you should have a worksheet that more or less looks like this, a request for service worksheet. And what I've done here is I've given you a space to write down some information, just like in the last one, giving you a few resources, a space to write down important information, and then giving you a research area as well as an action area. Okay, and we'll be using this worksheet hand in hand as we actually navigate to the USAC website in order to begin our application. So don't worry, there's nothing that you can break by starting an application. If you're not ready to submit, that's fine. Just don't hit the submit button at the end. And one of the great things about filling out part of the application today is that you can come back to it later, make any changes that you need to, and maybe 90% of your work will already be done today. You'll just have a few areas to fill back in. So let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to take you by the hand and we're going to walk right through it. Okay, first things first is I'd like you to open up a browser or create a new tab on this browser that you currently have open. And what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to the USAC website. Now I've already got it open here, but I'm going to do just like you're doing and go to usac.org. From the USAC's main page, you'll notice a pinkish purplish Schools and Libraries tab to the far right. Go ahead and navigate to that and click on it. In the Schools and Libraries subsection, you'll notice under the category Resources and Tools an Apply Online link. Click there. And finally, we're going to go under Form 470, Description of Services Requested and Certification Form, and we're going to click the top link called Create Form 470. Now, if you're watching this stream for educational purposes only and don't necessarily have a school or build entity to be filling one out for, just follow the exact steps that I use. What I'm going to be using is a USAC provided generic applicant, but I advise anybody that's listening in and watching from a school or a library or consortia or other to go ahead and fill this application out for yourself. Like I said, you don't have to hit the submit button at the end, and by filling it out along with me, we will have walked you through the application process. Okay, so the very first thing that comes up is the front door to the application process. What it wants to know, first of all, is your entity number or your zip code. We're going to go ahead and do the easy thing, and we're going to enter in a zip code. Okay, so enter in the zip code of your school or library. I'm going to enter in 20036 because that's where the dummy entity is that USAC has set up for testing purposes. You'll notice that a number of schools are displayed. These are all schools within that zip code. So make sure you select the school. If a number of schools appear, select your school. If your school is not in this list, take a look at the top here. Maybe go back one time and try a different zip code, see if you entered it in correctly, or maybe if your zip code has changed recently, try an older one. If you still have no luck finding it, go ahead and call the Service Bureau at 1-888-203-8100, and they will set you up a brand new build entity number so that the next time that you come in to do this, your entity will be here. I'm going to go ahead and click the very top one. This is the dummy account that USAC has set up for testing purposes like this. It's entity number 145909, and I'll hit next. What comes up next is a pop-up that says, please verify the information in block 1. I'm going to hit OK. Basically what it's telling me to do is check out the information that's here in block 1 that has been pre-filled for me. If you take a look at that information, it should have your entity's name, suite number if there is any, city, state, zip, phone number, and fax number. If it has all of that information and it's filled out properly, then there's nothing that you need to do. If you find any discrepancies here, make sure that you give USAC a call at that number that was just given. Okay, so we're going to go to item 2, funding year. More often than not, there's only one link available for the funding year. Go ahead and click this year's year, which is fiscal year 2014. Usually it'll be whatever year is in the following year. The next part, we're going to skip down to 5A because we've already verified all this information. We're going to go to type of applicant. Like I said in the very beginning, I'm assuming that we're filing for an individual school. If that's not the case, if you're going to file for an entire school district, library, or consortium, or some other thing, go ahead and click that now. The two application processes are surprisingly similar to one another, considering how different it might be. Next, you want to check all the boxes that apply to your school. We're just going to say that this is a public school. However, if you're a public charter, you might want to click both of those boxes. If you're a private school, and so on and so forth. The next part down, we're going to go to 5C, the number of eligible entities for which services are sought. Like I said, we're assuming that there is one school, so I'll put a 1 in that box. Next, I'm going to put my contact person's first name. I'm going to use John Smith. And here's an easy button. If the build entity address is the same as the address above, or excuse me, if the contact person's address is the same as the information given above, you can click this handy little button to copy the information from above. Okay, so let's say that it is. And I copy all of that information down. If not, spend a minute to fill out that information. Next, you'll check your preferred method of contact. So if you like being called by phone, go ahead and click 6D. If you like being called, or if you like being faxed, 6D. Sorry, I said that wrong. And 6E if you prefer email. I'm going to say that email is John Smith's preferred method. So I'm going to enter in his email address. Okay. The next part is an optional step. If you have a consultant who is helping you fill this out, that consultant will put their registration number here. What we're going to do is assume that you're not working with a consultant, that you're doing this individually, and so we'll leave that form blank. Okay. Next is a verification field. Please, when you get to this field, please resist the urge to click next and not copy down any of this information. If you look at this screen has an incredible amount of information. Let me take you through why you should print this screen, or at the very least copy down everything that you see on this next screen. Now, first of all, it's got something that you will use over and over and over and over again, your build entity number, your BEN, or your entity number. So make sure that you have that. Also, the contact person that you have just listed will become the primary source of contact with USAC, and so that's a good piece of information to have as well. Next thing that is super important on this particular form, especially for coming back and editing it later, is you need to have your Form 470 application number printed, copied, however you would like to store it, if you want to just write it down. Make sure that you either print or copy this information off of this page. I can't stress enough how often people have just pressed next and not thought about it and had to start all over from scratch. Okay? Next up, we're going to get a chance to select the types of service that we are looking for. Like I said earlier in a little aside, the first two categories are considered priority one, telecommunication service and internet access. The last two are internal connections that'll buy you things like network equipment, switches, routers, copper wiring, and wireless networking. And the last one is basic maintenance of all of those switches, routers, wires, and wireless networking. So we're going to assume that we want all four of these services. Why not, right? Shoot for the moon. And we're going to hit next. What we're going to see in the next 4 screens is a chance to request types of service for each of these categories. In box A, you'll see that you have a chance to put a link for a request for proposal. That's an RFP. An RFP is a chance for you to put on an internet page the kind of service that you're requesting. The kind of service that you're requesting. But you don't need to use that necessarily. If you're not planning to use an RFP, go to 8B, no, I don't have an RFP, and it'll allow you to fill out the kinds of service you're looking for below. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, this is telecommunication services, so we are going to request the following services. We're going to ask for local telephone lines. And we're going to put 50 of them. So basically, I'm looking for 50 local telephone lines. I want 25 of those to have long-distance service. And so, geez, if I could type. So I'm going to put 25 lines of long distance. Okay? And that'll do it for telecom. Okay? Please remember that just because I'm using analog telephone and services in my example doesn't mean that you can't request voice over IP service or digital telephone line services. Okay? Also, don't feel like you're constrained to last year's number. If you think, hey, we could really use an extra fax line, go for it. This is only an upper constraint. So like I always tell people, shoot for the moon when you're asking for E-rate things. All right, go to next. Next thing you'll see is internet access. Again, I don't have an RFP, so I'm going to click no, and I'm going to fill out what kind of internet access I'm looking for. Down in the internet access line, I'm going to say I need, I don't know, high-speed internet access, and I'm going to say that I need it for 20 classrooms. An alternative is I could put on there the kind of speed that I'm looking for, 100 meg. Either one is fine. If you put on there 20 classrooms, basically you're asking the service provider to make an educated guess on how much bandwidth you would need for 20 classrooms. If you put on there 100 meg, that's a little bit more specific and maybe more useful. They can just bill you right out what they think 100 meg might cost. Okay? And we're going to hit next. Next one is internal connections other than basic maintenance. Internal connections other than basic maintenance includes things like switches. Let's say that I need, I don't know, 20 switches, and I need a firewall, and I need one of those, and I need a new DNS server. And let's put one of those, and you know what? Why not wireless APs? Wireless, sorry, that's an industry term, wireless access point. Because I've been noticing that my wireless is a little bit spotty in the building. We'll get 14 of those, and we'll get an AP controller not 21 of those. You really just need one, and maybe some Cat6 cabling. Now, if everything that I've listed here looks like Greek to you, don't worry about that. Ask your IT guy. Ask anybody who knows anything about IT in your building, and they'll say, yeah, we could use some new switches, or our wireless maybe needs some upgrading in the next year. Again, these are all upper boundaries, so make sure that you're asking for more rather than less. I could always just order 10 switches next year and only have to pay for 10, but I can't order 30. Does that make sense? Okay, so always ask for a bit more than you think you might ever use. And I'm going to hit next. Finally, basic maintenance of internal connections. Again, I'm going to put no, we don't have an RFP. This one's super easy. Just put basic maintenance and the number of hours monthly that you think that you'll use. 20 hours a month. That'll allow a service provider to quote you out on a monthly and a yearly basis. And again, you're just making an educated guess. It's always shoot a little bit higher than you think, but try and make it as close as possible, and we'll hit next. The next category is a chance for you to put in, it's optional, it's a chance for you to put in a technical contact. Now, if the person who you put as your contact person for the school can't answer technical questions, say how many routers do you really need, if you're not able to answer that question, probably a good idea to put on a technical contact so the service providers can go right to them and get the answers that they're looking for. Now, I'm just going to assume that John Smith knows everything about his internal network and his telecom needs and whatnot, so I can leave everything here blank, and I'll hit next. All right? This next screen gives me a chance to look at what I've requested services for. If I forgot to request services for any of those categories, it'll let me go back and do those, but I've requested for each one of them, and I feel confident that I'm ready to move on. All right, the next one is a chance for you to list who will be receiving those services. If you have a school, like we assume, with only one entity, just go ahead and fill in the entity number or the zip code of that school and run a search, and you'll notice that that applicant will come up. Make sure you hit the click on it and then hit the add all button so that they're in the build entities. If there are more than one, obviously you're going to add more than one, but we're not going to cover that today. So we've added our applicant to the build entities list, and we'll hit next. Next is a screen to verify that this is the build entity who will be taking care of our E-rate needs for this year. If everything looks good, go ahead and hit next. Last page is a page of certifications. We'll run through each of these certifications really quickly. The very first one is that the No Child Left Behind, is that you are applying for a school or a library that operates as a not-for-profit school as defined by NCLB. Okay? You would check B if you're a library. So we're not going to check B. We're assuming it's a school. Number 17, I certify that schools receiving service are covered by a technology plan. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click that one because we've already worked out our technology plan, or we're in the process of doing so. Number 18, I certify that I will post my Form 470 and make my RFP available for 28 days, which is the minimum number of days that you are required to leave it out there for competitive bidding requirements. Okay, I certify that. Next one is a document retention requirement. You're allowed, or excuse me, you are required to retain your documents for 5 years. Next is an acknowledgement that maybe not all of your technology funding needs will come under the E-rate program, and that there are a few of them that may not. The next one is an authorization of you to procure eligible services on behalf of your entity. The next one is that you promise to review, or excuse me, that you certify that you've reviewed all of the competitive bidding requirements for your state and local county, as well as national ones set by the FCC. And finally, you acknowledge that FCC rules provide that criminal violations or civil violations can arise from participation in the Schools and Libraries Division, or excuse me, I guess breaking any of the rules thereof. So we're going to go ahead and print the name of the authorized person, John Smith. Please go ahead and fill out your name. Title of this person, let's call this person, oh, I don't know, E-rate manager. All right. Check the box if that's a consultant. Then you'll also go ahead and fill out the street address. I can't remember what it was, so I'm just going to put, I don't know, 123 Main Street. Washington, D.C. I think it was 20036, yeah. And then just I'm going to make up a telephone number. Obviously, you'll be filling in all of your information here. And then the email address one more time. All right. Hopefully everyone has been able to keep up. I know that I've been moving at a pretty quick pace, but I think that you would all agree, considering we're on the very last page, that this has been a pretty quick process for asking for what it is that you need. And I'm going to put the name of the authorized person's employer, which is applicant. Oops. There we go. All right. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit next. You might want to take note of where to submit this form, although it will be in future pages. So if you're thinking about it now, go ahead and copy that information down and hit next. It says that item 20 was not checked. I guess I didn't check it. If you don't check any of those certifications, it'll spit you back and make you do it again. So I hit next. Here's where we will submit our form. If I hit the submit button, it will go ahead and submit it. Before I do that, I want to hit print preview and pull up what a print preview looks like exactly. Okay? So this print preview is going to show me my application in a different format. The cool thing about this particular format is I can print it right from here, and I can sign on line 25 and date on line 26 and send this application right in by paper with no need to apply online. If you don't have a PIN from USAC, that's the way that you'll have to do it. So go ahead and print this application up when you're all ready to go. If you have a PIN, then you will do an electronic certification later. Now, either way that you do it, this is very important. Printing it up and then sending it in is not enough. You still have to submit it online right here by clicking the green button. I'm not going to do that right now because I used a dummy account throughout. And if you weren't able to fill it out 100% completely, you might not want to do that either. So make sure that when you get to the end, click the submit button once everything looks good. Then use the print preview to go ahead and print up your form, sign it, send it to the address that was on there. And like I said, you can always hit previous to go back and check out things that you may have missed through it all. Okay, so all of that done, I'm going to hit save and exit up at the top. Oh, it wants me to fill out. You know what? I'm just going to exit. Okay. What I'd like to show you how to do is to get back to it once you've done it. Okay. Here on that page that we were at, the application page, you'll notice a continue incomplete line under there that asks for your 470 application number. If you put in your 470 application number here, it will allow you to get back to this application, continue it, submit it, print it, send it in, do all the things that we were going to do before, so you don't have to do it all in one sitting. Okay? Just a side note. Okay. And that's it. Once we submit this, basically what we've done is we've said, this is what I want from you, E-rate. Here's the kinds of services that I want to be discounted for the next year. Looks like I've gone a couple minutes over time, so I'm going to wrap up. What we've done today is we've talked about what the E-rate program is. And as we talked about what the E-rate program is, we talked about who the USAC is and what kind of discounts you can receive. Telecom, internet, internal connections, and basic maintenance. We've also talked about writing a tech plan, and I've given you a worksheet that should help, as well as links to the Arizona Department of Education website that will give you templates. Like I said, if a tech plan looks big and scary to you, don't worry about it. Find help. Find someone who's done it before, and they'll say, ah, that's a piece of cake. I'll help you with it. Here's an example of mine. Why don't you just change what you need to change for your school? There's a lot of help out there as that's concerned. Unfortunately, I would love to be a big resource on that, but I would also like to bid on your things, and I can't have that kind of information if I'm going to submit a bid, so I can't help you with anything but general information as far as that's concerned. Finally, we talked about the Form 470 request for services. The Form 470 is where we got to actually go in and say, okay, I want internet service, here's how much I need. Okay, I want internal connection service, and here's how much I'm going to request. That will immediately turn into bids for you, and those bids, as they come in from authorized service providers, will turn into a 471 down the road. We've got another webinar on that in the future, and it will turn into approvals and funding and everything that you were looking for E-rate. So I'm going to end by showing you guys the upcoming webinars that we have on Tuesday, November 12th at the same time. It's 3 weeks from today. We'll be doing the second part in our Getting Started series called Selecting a Qualified E-rate Service Provider. Basically, we'll pick up where we left off today, talk about the 28-day waiting period, and what you can expect from service providers as the time comes. 3 weeks from that date, Tuesday, December 3rd, 2013, same exact time, we will present our last of 3, Getting Started with E-rate Filing and Funding. This is the fun part. This is where you get to actually put in your final request from E-rate with the discount percentages, and you'll know then exactly how much you stand to save by going through this E-rate program. I'm going to stick around for a few minutes. If there's anybody who's interested in asking any questions on the chat, feel free. If you have any questions that you'd like to send for me in an email, by all means send them to me. I will do my best to answer them or at least set you in the right direction. And it's been a real pleasure taking you through this very first of 3 webinar series, Getting Started with E-rate. Like I said, I'll be around. Thank you very much.